welcome everybody to our virtual reading. I'm Jenna Benj. I'm the president of the Kerouac Project of Orlando. And for anyone who isn't familiar with us or hasn't been here before, special welcome. You can find us on our website at kerouacproject.org. And you can subscribe to our newsletter there, find out more about us, make a donation, whatever floats your boat. We'd love to have you come and visit us there. But this is all about Tanya Grae, and she is our current resident. We have 4 residents a year in the Kerouac house, and where Jack Kerouac lived and wrote in 1957-58. And they come from all over the world. And Tanya happens to come from very close to home, which is kind of unusual. She and Eric Deckers, who is sitting beside her on my frame anyway, are 2 people who are local to Florida. And Tanya got her undergrad degree at Rollins and her PhD at Florida State. So she's very, very local to us, and we are very glad to have her here. We had hoped that COVID would have sort of passed us by now, but oh no, it's still with us. So we've had to do this by Zoom, but we're glad that you have joined us. And we are ready to listen to some of Tanya's poems from her book, Undol, and also some of the things that she may have been working on in the house. So Tanya, if you'd like to take it away, at the end, we will have time for questions, and it would appear a little impromptu house tour, which will be fun. So welcome.
Well, and thank you guys for coming tonight. I appreciate it. I feel like I'm actually looking at a room full of friends, which is nice and intimate, and thank you for coming. I'm going to read for about 30 minutes, and if you had any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then, yeah, I'd like to take you on a little tour. The house has like 2 sides. It's just so neat. So I'd love to show you that. So I spent a lot of the time thinking about these poems, at least the first ones I'm reading from Undol, thinking about them in the time that I lived here. I lived right on the Little Wekiva River. And, you know, right as my life was kind of going through a big transition, and I spent time working on this when I was at FSU, and so I'm excited to read some of these for you. Little Wekiva River. I want no evidence I am dirty. All the fruit I picked, a dress full, I let drop. Heavy shoes on the heart pine floor, purpling under the skin, all I thought I wanted. The house with its backyard river, swing set in sundial. Enough wild bougainvillea sprang to be kept, overlooking the gate. Until now, sun leaving behind the live oak, Nauman pointing, me stepping out of the dress. So more or less, the book is about a lot of change, having the freedom to make that change. And sometimes we have those moments where we have this epiphany of change, and it hits us in the strangest places, including a gynecologist office. And this poem is called Oblation. And oblation, there's a word ablation that begins with an A, which is a gynecological procedure, but an oblation with an O, which is the title of this poem, is an offering to God. My gynecologist asks if others may watch. I consent, already numb. Why not? There should be an audience for this end. An antiphon could be written in the hum of machinery and whir, my feet cold on metal stirrups, my legs bent high in a squat. I tune the sterile out. After today, I won't have a period. That punctuation I prayed for at times will disappear. He tells me I will feel some pressure, a little pinch, then dilate wide. My cervix, my eyes, a laparoscopic camera enters my universe, reveals on the monitor a contrast to anatomy diagrams of an inflamed red trumpet, aloft aglow, carnations, white feathers, heaven inside of me. The whole room presses close to the screen. I turn my head away as we tear the cradle down. Waiting. Just as I heard his truck on the driveway, the glass slipped from my hand, vertigo, like I've never had it. Knowing how the night will go, his 3-minute hate disguised as hello, no kiss, and 2 beers. He'll sit in that chair and rail the evening news when the war is already here. To come undone. Sorry, my breathing has a little, I have a little breathing issue, not really little, but you're gonna hear me gasping for air a little bit, so I apologize in advance. It's not COVID, I'm not sick that way. Not that I could transmit that through the camera. I might knock out handy cameraman that's here, but not you. Trying. To come undone. My mother used to say makeup. My mother used to say lipstick was best manners. Praised the importance of putting on a good face. Add to the list the padded bra, slip and girdle, clothes pinned to the line. How the nakedness of women without makeup used to shock me, their blemishes and pores. Be a lady everywhere except the bedroom. But that braless summer, my aunt didn't shave armpits, legs, anything. Too much skunk running wild in her appearance. We sang American Girl before she met the wolf man who hid her behind dark glasses, face dolled up like Red Book, how she bent herself in his moods. Beauty is skin deep, but ugly is to the bone. My father used to call my mother's name, and she'd drop everything and go. It startled me, the urgency of something wrong, misplaced, his keys, a shoe. But those affairs he had for years after she gave up college to marry fueled 3 degrees at choke down speed. Make sure you can take care of yourself. I learned to say no and outlast the silence, tired of hours, contortions to please, and cut my own hair and let myself go. Those barefaced women I used to study, whose eyes scolded mine, knew one day I'd shrug at the mirror and say so. So one of the things I really personally love about poetry, especially with some of the poets, some of my favorite poets in the room, is the way that we talk to other poems. And some of the poems in the book are in conversation with others, because we're always standing on the shoulders of others when we're having these conversations. And so the poem I'm going to read you right now, it talks to the river that I used to live on, but it also talks to Lorca, and specifically to a translation by Connor O'Callaghan. And it's called The Unfaithful Housewife. No one led me to the river, and I was not a virgin because I had a husband and you. Those long July weekends in Mobile, you asked me to stay. The streetlights weren't on yet as I parked at the restaurant. Areola's electric, heat-diffusing perfume and the cotton of my jeans. You and your fine linen suit, table votive with its aureole of gold, the haze, your eyes. I forgot my life so fast, 8 hours from the river, past the longleaf pines, scrub palms, and billboards. After 2 glasses of Pinot, I let down my hair. You took off your tie and reached for my hand. My need to kiss you, your cocksure play. No coffee, no dessert, nothing in all of Florida has half the sweetness. That night you might have harnessed the winds off the Gulf of Mexico, winged, unbridled mind. I play back the murmurs, my body still bitten, pulled me from the river, tangled at bougainvillea, married, yes, but fallen and already yours. So this next one is kind of talking to my last duchess. You guys might remember this. It was always something that was kind of a favorite, at least in college, in undergrad, Robert Browning. So this is talking to that poem, but I also have to credit a few other people. So I studied with Andrew Epstein at FSU, and one of the classes that he taught was remix. And so he introduced me to the concept of flarf, which is basically doing a search on the internet for a term and seeing what happens and seeing if you can do something with it. Well, I tried that with a term, but then what I realized is that I had heard enough examples in my own life that I could just write them down and rearrange what I had heard. So I'm calling this a found poem, and it's talking to my last duchess. Duchess. Oh, it's also a little bit of an erasure, too. So it's doing a lot of things. If you would just be a better wife, a better mother, like my mother, get off the computer, off the phone, have dinner ready when I get home. If you would just stop spending money, just wash my clothes, pay attention to the kids, stop spoiling the kids, taking their side over mine. If you would just rub my hair, stop playing with the dog, rub my back, would just put the book down, just blow me, then go to sleep. If you would just help me with the business, stop acting like my boss, would just leave the business alone, get a job, you, make it all about your job. Realize your check doesn't pay the bills. If you would just see I'm not one of your students, see, you're just like your mother. You make it all about you. So depressed, such a nutbag. If you would just talk about it, spend time with me, stop talking. I'm trying to watch TV. Just try harder, be content. Just change, problem solved. If you would just act like you give a damn, care more about what I think than stop pissing me off, saying fuck all the time, just fuck me, initiate. If you would just not bait me and make me yell, stop yelling, then I wouldn't yell. Just pay attention to what I'm saying, not be such a bitch, just let it go. Grow up. If you would just, never mind. It's like talking to a fucking wall. Just die. Stay. So also in the last few years, we've had all these advents on the computer, and one of my favorites, I don't know about you, it kind of like brings out the whole stalker vibe in a little bit. Don't really mean it to, but it does. It's fun. Google Earth, like, where all of a sudden you're flying through space, and of course the app itself kind of helps you because you're like at a satellite, and then you zoom in close, and then the next thing you know, you're in somebody's front yard, looking at their house, and it's kind of weird, but I don't know, maybe you've Googled yours. Somebody I don't know. So this is called the Google Earth effect. Visible from space, my house sits on a little river, or at least from satellite view, where I see the vertebrate arrangement of lots and streets. A red-hot balloon pinpoints the spot. I've been lost all these years. Call it still life with joystick. In this virtual diorama, I fly low where nothing moves. No cars, no cats, no one watering a lawn, and shrink back to play home. If I were a stranger, I might picture the people inside, but the door is closed and blinds drawn, and there's no hint at all of yelling. Who understands unless they're in it? I find myself rotating the view straight above to look for the all-seeing eye, or at least the sky on that day, and pan up and out and over and away. So as much as I loved the river that I lived on and all the wildlife and flowers. And it also, one of my other passions is I love Greek mythology. And I couldn't help but think about how the river made me think about the river Lethe, which you might know the river Styx. In the Greek underworld there were rivers, and the one that we tend to know is the one where Achilles was dipped and on your way to the land of the dead. But there was also Lethe, which was the river of forgetting. For all the fish, the little blessings that I missed, maybe I should just thank you. We can leave the dress behind that didn't fit, or fly to a new city and wear the metropolis as our skin. Things happen. How one love becomes another, in seasons maybe. It's okay to remember how I lived multitudes of lives. Where does oblivion begin? Years I tried to forget and be reborn, not as a naiad, no. I want feathers and dark. Let me be the hunter. According to Virgil, I'm almost ready. But if long to stay, I should know how I got here, Have I been drinking your water so long I've erased whole passages? Maybe I'll forget. I forget everything these days. How are we doing? I'm gonna read a short one and then a long one, just to give you a little idea where the breath is gonna come. So rewind is a funny verb. It's almost an ancient verb at this point, because what do we rewind? We don't rewind anything. You say rewind, it's almost like picking up the phone and doing this. All the kids do this. If you say phone now, they don't do this. Rewind, we don't rewind anything anymore. Rewind. I look for what keeps me here. That first love and breathlessness my therapist compares to crack. That high when I don't give a fuck, when I feel like I've won, when I am solid and safe in lightness, that yes. To stay here is Hollywood and celluloid, real, flammable, wound so tight a fingernail, can't wedge between then and now, a spool of mind I replay when nothing catches, when my prayer beads move under thumb faster and faster, when the bike pedals outpace the chain, when all the plates I am spinning drop and ring the house to silence, that flood of light when the movie burns. So for the long one that I'm gonna read, the only thing you need to know if you didn't know it beforehand, it's the word caryatid is the column that looks like a woman holding up, like we normally see other columns, but these are shaped like a woman. And I used to stare at my grandmother and think that she looked like one. The line of a girl. At sunrise, our caryatid stands at the kitchen window, and white embroidered curtains diffuse daylight into her glow. I study her silhouette, the load bearer, the muse. My grandmother is Atlas, yet Smyrna moves outside this woman. Within her history, another South, different endings my child mind can't perceive. She is a bell smoldering with cigarette. Her drawn lines surrendered, illuminate and sear, scythe, burning, Joyce, the lighthouse of hours, the late. In the afternoons, I draw close and practice reading books aloud. She listens for a lilt, even in prose, signifying import with her brow. Generations of corrections, so I will speak well, genteel, the diction of illusion. My savored prize, her smile, exhales the gray as she grinds a filter into her wedding silver ashtray. White flags on gristled embers bear her wreck red stain. She fills her glass and it empties, and again, days I watch until my mouth is dry. I am off to play, she is lost in sight, the undertow of entertaining oneself when lonely and not alone. All the comfort is outside. I spend hours underneath the mimosa, the fern-laced light of its shade, jazz-handed pink in constellation. From wherever, I am her black-eyed Susan here, wide acres over it all, free, a girl running. Jesus, can you see me? I feel so small. Not as little as a thrush or the ruby throats tongue deep in the honeysuckle with furious wings not easy to be. But she was that sudden goddess amid small-town bourgeoisie, out of air, an invisible net. Is it so intangible, the life versus living? This, her way out, arranged comfortable years with a gentle man, without want. What of a settled home? Why fear? Dear heart, the same words of my mother, the appearance of elevation, the right tone, the pleasing smile. Beauty cries over a bitten lip, nails dug deep into a fisted palm. Years later, the same bed I've made, this lie I keep, summons her presence uncalm. Does my tremor wrench the line, that silver cord, that river of provenance between us? I feel her in the curtain weight, the sail, the ballast. My house reels adrift as the floors settle and moan, the walls, my head spinning. Jesus, do you feel it too? Thanks. So a few more from the book, and then I'll read something else, and then call it. So I don't know about you guys, I used to be obsessed with the movie Grease, and I wore that record out, played it, drove my mom crazy, loved it. And then what I love is all the kids are watching it now too, and they love it too. It's been on Broadway, it's a lot of things. I really identified a lot with Rizzo, so maybe you had your favorite character too. I was Rizzo. Rizzo's song. I sang full voice in my girl pink room, driving my mother crazy. I wore out the vinyl, the irony, the foreshadow of my teenage role, a mezzo like Stockard Channing, playing low. There are worse things I could do. How I hated you at first, until I didn't. Our high school operetta no different, reading Romeo and Juliet and watching Zeffirelli, me sneaking out my window to catch midnight movies at AMC and Rocky Horror in the Grove, the era of John Hughes and us skipping school at Crandon and coming home tan and catching hell and fire and holding hands at Dayland and Bayside and the Falls and hallways and all the notes and cards and bears, and you teaching me how to drive stick and your dad's old Carmen Ghia, and kissing slow and playing games, and the way you cried laughing at something I'd say, and the sex at Alice Wainwright, even Vizcaya and our Renaissance, the splendor. No one understood our moon phases and tides, like pregnant and then not, and the hospital and my parents and your parents and you at boot camp and long distance engaged and that pool party and the rape of that call and breaking up and other boys and me being so aloof and never getting back to that place when we could just lie together, spooned in your room. Why could I never say the truth? That half bottle of Percocet and wine coolers to fly my Malibu upside down through a tomato field. I can feel and I can cry, a fact I bet you never knew. That first kiss at Ocean Reef on your birthday, or sitting in chemistry thinking I didn't see you in the bleachers while I cheered, or in a crowd, or that first time underneath the water tower, the dew already rising, the dog star on the hem of night's skirt pulled down for morning. How are you guys doing? Hanging in? After 15 years, before a bad storm, Florida's sky is an overripe mango. I smell ions and night jasmine. He plays hard habit to break on his way home from work, and I toss his birthday cake in the river. So actually, in the audience right now is Barbara Hanby, and I owe this title to her. By the way, she's known as the title whisperer of Tallahassee and probably southeastern United States for sure. So she titled this poem. I had something awful before. Lot's wife leaves suburbia, and it has a Latin epigraph, which basically translates to, if you want peace, prepare for war. Today I slammed the door so hard the house fell behind me. If any ring remains of rubble and consequence, my salt heart agape, an O to construct the shape of the hole just before. This was my war. I didn't shrink to fit remarks landing around me, in me, fire almost out when fury came. The seam rip of thunder, a rush of mothers howled through my mouth, burst wide. The mothy swarm blackened the room, hurling tables, smashing plates, launching the oven and washer through the window. The wife life I lived laid waste, and the shock of it rang. The door was the end, as in the day of Lot and the host and hailfire, except I refused to look back and kept walking. So 2 more from the book, and then I'm going to read you another one, and then I'll answer anything you want to know. How to care for a narcissist. Hopefully you don't know one. So here's how to care for one. He calls again to say he's upset I'm making it difficult for him to feel close to her. How I conjure this dissonance, his burled timber filling my ear, his want too easily at home. Of course, it's his erection in the door I'm trying to close, muscle memory pushing in. Oh, the charm. I'm all out of awe. He's voracious, carrot and stick, his lashing out. I mute the phone, ignore his text, and finally block his number. Sure, I'll miss the sex, his eyes, my eyes reflecting pools, you and more you. So I always, I love that. I don't hear it in Tallahassee so much. I don't know, but I always did hear. It's all the barred owls that are down here when they really get going in the different times of the year. So this one's called Mating Season. And actually, Susan, I remember sitting at breakfast reading you a draft of this a long time ago. Mating season. Barred owls on the river hunt for sex all night. In a flash mob exchange, they pitch and haggle their charms back and forth in a wild orangutan vocalize. Such a fury for love, the silence settles, the coupling surely struck. There's no sleeping through the fireworks, but after, in the absence, the whole night rings with possibility. Who knows what will come in the year ahead, or what to leave behind? But now I'm awake and thirsty, and the half-full glass at my side is not enough. Too tired to get out of bed, I close my eyes and lull against the translation of owls calling out, if not you, someone. If not you, someone new. Okay, so, and since I have poets in the audience, so this is like a little challenge. So I've created this little form that I'm kind of enamored with, and of course, because I created it, so I would be enamored with it. That's the thing about like, and actually, Michelle plays a role in this because when I was writing it, I'm always learning from everybody, and so. In Ted Berrigan's The Sonnets, which is this wonderful book if you've never read it, as you read the book, he's one of the New York School poets, as you read his collection, you'll hear lines repeat. And I'm like, why is he doing that? And he's just kind of mixing it up. And what he's doing is he's having conversations with other poems, kind of the way that centos do with other people's work. But in this, in this form, I took some lines out of Undal to say goodbye to the book and talk to the new work that I'm working on. And I had this idea that maybe because, just like in painters have things in a different phase, that because we're in a different place, the lines themselves would have a different meaning. So I'm calling this a breadth. And Michelle challenged me, no, go back through and take one line from every poem. And so I did. And this is the poem that I've been working on. So for those of you with a book, I challenge you. It's called A Breadth, and that you go back, and it's kind of an intuitive grab, to go back through your work, find one line from every poem, and see if you can make a new poem out of it, not changing the words in the poem, not changing the words on the line. Just see. I think it's something interesting to try, and it has its own meaning. So I'm calling this Post-Doll, and you may hear some lines that you heard tonight. Some part of me, maybe the missing part, awoke of a burning throat, of yelling, who understands? But now I'm awake and thirsty, and the half-full me stepping out of the dress, diaphanous and twin, drunk on fairy tales, non-ascetic. I've been mise en abyme, standing between two mirrors, to mark history, the flood's rise, that silver cord, that river of violin, of velvet, of want, of what dimensions intertwine. The world is full in every space, volume with no end, no containment. See, you're just like your mother. An exponential line turned and sent my girl legs running. The urgency of something wrong, misplaced, some pressure, a little pinch, then dilate wide. Take Faulkner and his darling string. In the great machine, there are no jokes. Under bed sheets of myth and pang, open her hidden hand, her long, throaty curve. Could I never say the truth? That half bottle, when the war is already here? I had a smallest self and wasn't looking. Through the eye in the canopy, through the window, that flood of light pulls you and more you. I forgot my life so fast, I'd shrug at the mirror and say, so? Some seasons arrive late. It's okay to remember how I lived multitudes of lives. If only each disaster announced itself, a siren, torn in that part that said, die, goodbye, thanks. The roads are rearranged and the city is mislabeled. Beside the last suitcase and my mother in line, second to a man, third after kids. The memory verse as she leans her ear, I whisper, doll patience is painted. To turn back and conscientiously object. The wrenching jolt, the flutter of her, no longer my whole life set in her jaw. How orchids rehearse inside their bulbs, how a lie devours daylight, the limb of stars, choosing wisely what thrives fasting blossoms, wait and count and breathe, working 24-hour shifts, holding an imaginary line of lather and fury. My fingers work through the strands of what a girl can do and how to turn it. Mid-throat to say what we want isn't what is, but if it was, a small disclaimer, metamorphosis can be ironic, just initial here. We live in the pursuit of halcyon, to be small and underbelly as people pass by, legs of motion, beauty hums to say, now I remember your hands. I draw a line down the body, through the life. The road offers right or left and miles either way. Hours like a broad grin, brave what the... I smell ions and night jasmine. I let down my hair. I stifle smiles and feel uncontainable. Thank you.
Oh, that was really lovely. Thank you.